It's our tax dollars at work. The state has more than the county. I really would rather you designate general fund money for other local purposes than to spend it on implementing an unfunded mandate, such as the greenhouse gas emissions and zoning. You are not required to like the law or any law in order to obey it. Think about that. And I ask all of you to support going after a grant instead of using our general fund. We all really don't have a choice. I'd rather fight the battles here on having to implement the law, even if nobody in this county really likes it. I don't want to fight a lawsuit with those few dollars in our general fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
My name is Peter Race. I'm from Valley Spring, victim of community service number 1. I went through this, downloaded on a computer, this whole package, and to really express my opinion about it, I couldn't because it's mixed company. So let me be Ron vague about it. And I want to give you an idea of where I'm coming from. I experienced socialism back in Hungary in '56, and I see the consequences. I experienced politics of socialism in Chicago, where I quit it. And I came away with the conclusion, I do not want Chicago politics. I don't want San Francisco moral and ethical values. And I definitely don't like Los Angeles environment. Now, going to a little bit more closer, because I'm sure I won't have enough time to finish it. There was some subject matter that, hey, there's no conspiracy along that line. Well, I'm sure you're going to go through the extra step to look at what the United Nations is supporting, what the gentlemen by name of Barney Frank and Chris Dodd, who has a bill supposedly said. You might want to take a look at it. And I'm sure those gentlemen are very, very well qualified through that experience and ethics and moral values. I'm not talking about countrywide and sandwich with Kennedy or prostitution rings out of their homes. I don't want to bring those little details in there. But that does reflect of their ethical and moral values and standard they're willing to stand up to. Now, going back to some comments made over here, it's a grant. Folks, let's get real. What is the source of the grant? Who's paying for the grant? Because the state has money. The last I heard, they were in a hole. The last heard, one of the very capital group, Caltrans, the last I heard, they're going to stop any and all future work because they broke. Is there going to be a federal grant? The last time I heard, the federal government is in a hole slightly. And money they willing to promote this idea is not coming from, even from your and my pocket. It's coming from someplace called China and Japan or whatever. You want to create a utopia on earth. But if these people, and first of all, what you promoting here is total abdication of your job, your fiduciary duty. For you to go out, go to another county, select somebody unelected, unaccountable, to set my social and environment standards that I can't handle, and then push it over to sure wonderful people over here, that they will make the decision. I consider an abdication of your individual job of representing the community. There are certain questions in here. There's a lot of nice words in here, but it fails to identify some of these groups. I like to see the pedigrees of these wonderful groups over here of Sierra Regional Action Plan of Prosperity. I've seen what you're paying for your membership. I took a look at your expense reports. And I'm sure we can go into more detail as time goes on, because at 5 minutes I can't go into all the details. But it's a reduction of your duties. It's a question of the idea that it's just a fund, but it's still taxpayers' fund. Now, there is an alternative we mentioned in here, and I want to compliment the planning department. It's only took him 2 weeks' worth of work to do 15 hours putting it together and forcing these poor folks to make a decision. 2 weeks to do 15 hours of staff work.
Ms. please address the board. Thank you. Mr. Reyes, please address the board.
Yes, ma'am.
And you have 35 seconds left.
How much?
35 seconds.
Well, in 35 seconds, let me summarize it. This is bull manure, folks. It's totally bull manure. And I can't hold those people and people in Tuolumne County accountable. But I do have a way to hold you 5 accountable, directly or indirectly. And I know how much you folks spent on your election, 10 to 12,000 individually. And I know there was overwhelming support, 14, 15, 16 votes on some of your expressed attitude and values. But you are accountable. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes.
I'm Ginger Griffin. I'm from McCollum Hill, and it's hard to know where to start to dispel some of this cascade of misconceptions. But I would like to start with just one point. California voters clearly demonstrated strong support for the environment in the 2006 general election, when they voted 53.8% to 46% to approve Proposition 84, the $5.38 billion Clean Water, Parks, and Coastal Protection Initiative. Proposition 84 contains provisions to fund 8 broad areas of investment in California. Among them is an allocation of $580 million for sustainable communities, from which the Calaveras-Amador-Tuolumne grant proposal hopes to draw $1.6 million in support. Money to support these grants has already been allocated by the California State Legislature. The money will be spent whether Calaveras benefits from it or not. How could our own residents reject money which has come from our taxpayers' pockets, citing future generations as the victims? Future generations will be grateful for our stewardship of the land. It will be far more expensive for them to pay for it in the future. Please support the grant application. We need it now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Griffin.
Hello, I'm Tillman Sherman from San Andreas. I worked for the State Controller's Office for 30 years. I worked analyzing, compiling, studying, auditing, and at times approving various aspects of local government finances. We all pay taxes. We pay property taxes, etc., to the county. We pay state income taxes to the Franchise Tax Board. We pay sales tax that goes to the Board of Equalization. We pay tax at the gas pumps, and we pay taxes at on our electric, phone, water, and sewer bills, and who knows to what agency. We elect federal and state officials to represent our interests, and they are the ones who decide how these taxes are redistributed. One of the primary ways they are redistributed is through grants. Appropriations at the state and federal levels establish the funding of grants. Once these funds are appropriated, that money is generally assured to be spent for its intended purpose. Once grant funding is appropriated, the only question that remains is where will it be spent? In the big picture, nothing is saved by not applying for a grant. Instead, a valuable opportunity is missed by those who choose not to participate. We elect our county supervisors, and one of their responsibilities is to see that we get all the resources back to this county that we are entitled to or have access to. This Sustainable Communities Grant will help Calaveras pay for things that the county is required to do. Applying for this grant is the right thing to do. It is simply a matter of functioning within the current governmental funding mechanisms. I strongly encourage Calaveras County to apply for this Sustainable Communities Grant and all other grants that will benefit the citizens of Calaveras County, because it is just a matter of getting back the taxes that we already paid. It is not an imposition on our children. It is not an imposition on our grandchildren. This money has already been spent. Let us spend it. If we don't get it, it's going to go somewhere else, and it is not adding to the national debt. It is not changing the history of the world. It is helping us pay for a state requirement that Calaveras County must do anyway. Thank you.
Does anyone else have anything they'd like to address on this issue?
Ed's more important than me, so I'll let him go first.
I don't know about importance, and I hesitate to stand up on an issue like this that, for whatever reason, seems to have some controversy associated with it. And I can understand the concerns, but I want to approach this first from the Water District side. Calaveras County Water District's board, as you know, has already adopted a resolution in favor of supporting this grant application. If someone wants to blame me, I was probably the brainchild of the water districts working on this grant, because it does have some significant opportunities for water conservation and energy efficiency savings for water districts. As people know, water and wastewater throughout the county, especially the rural areas, is expensive because we don't have the economy of scale, and it costs a lot of money for the infrastructure, and it's expensive to pump. Water and wastewater is heavy, and we have to pump it up the hill and then pressurize it down the hill so that we don't blow up facilities. So there's a lot of cost with moving water and pumping it. Our specific role in this is to do an engineering analysis of water and energy efficiency savings, potential savings, and to help us prioritize which facilities would be most cost-effective to replace now rather than later. So ours is a very specific exercise here of an engineering analysis. And each agency is going to be the decision maker about their individual product. This isn't going to be decided by some committee somewhere else. The decisions are made by the local body and the project manager. But I want to add additional information about Prop 84. The California voters voted in favor of this proposition in 2006, and the bonds have been sold, so the money is available. It's not about the state being broke. That's a separate issue. And if you follow the stock market, people are moving money out of the stock markets and then buying municipal bonds and bonds like this because the return investment's a little better and it's fairly safe. So these bonds have already been sold, and when we apply for this grant, the money's available. So I want to make sure that's clearly understood. Another item to clarify is that while Amador County has decided to move on their own and compete for this against this larger regional effort with Tuolumne and Calaveras, Amador Water Agency Board did decide to work with this larger regional effort. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic that the Amador Water Agency Board will be supporting CCWD and TUD on this issue. And the one last thing I will say is that I would like someone to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I'm pretty clear on this. This is just an information opportunity of developing studies so that we can have an intelligent discussion about the issues. And no decisions are going to be made that are going to influence any property rights or except for the zoning update, but that has to be done anyway. But basically, this is just an information gathering exercise that will help bring about informed decisions that still are made by the individual boards. So there's no erosion of local issues, in my mind. That's all I have to say. I do encourage the board supporting this effort because it is a regional effort. There's a lot of agencies involved, and as you've heard before, I think about more than half the agencies are already in favor of this. So I do encourage the support. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Spellman, you were wherever you are, did you leave? Oh, Mr. Spellman, go ahead.
Darren Spellman, again, from Rancho Calaveras. I'll start by reading this quote. I give kudos to Mr. Eggleston and his staff at the Enterprise for running this on August 24th, which is last Tuesday. It was a quote by a former president of ours who a lot of people admire. The quote starts, "Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same." That quote came from former President Ronald Reagan, who was also the governor of the great state of California at one time. What I have to say isn't for or against the ideology behind sustainability. I think that we all realize that protecting our environment and taking care of our natural resources is an important piece to our survival and our prosperity. And I don't disagree with that one bit. And Mr. Sherman pointed out that this particular grant proposal and what we're talking about today is merely a part of the process that he said he was involved in for 30 years as a public employee of the state, correct? My submission to you would be that the process is flawed. You know, Mr. Sherman's right, it is part of the process. And for a simple analogy, it would be like if you said, well, I bought a large pizza, I paid $10 for it, and I can't take any of it with me when I leave here from the pizza parlor, so even though I'm totally stuffed after 4 pieces, I'm going to continue to cram it into myself because I paid for it, and gosh darn it, I'm going to eat every piece of that pizza because I'm not going to leave any on the table for anybody else to come and get. So if we're going after this grant and saying we've already paid the taxes and we're indebted for these things, we're basically saying we've bought the pizza, we want to eat it regardless of whether it's good for us or if it's healthy for us. And I would submit to you that in the financial, fiscal crisis that we find ourselves in right now, both on a local, state, and federal level, that this is not fiscally responsible, regardless of whether the funds are there, regardless of whether we have a right to them, regardless of whether sustainability is a worthwhile cause, which I believe it is. It's not responsible to take money that doesn't need to be spent or dealt with right now. We need to deal with the task at hand, which is to have a balanced budget. And I think that you as a Board of Supervisors and us as a county can show integrity and can show that we have the intelligence to not be susceptible to group thought, which is that we paid it, we get it, we're going to jump on the wagon. Show leadership, I'm asking you, and intelligence by saying this is something that we'd like to do, but it's not fiscally responsible. And I would submit also that when this thing goes through in Tuolumne, Amador, or any number of other counties that get these funds and they conduct the studies, I'm sure that they would be very willing to share with us the information that's gleaned from those. Not all of the information may not be specific to Calaveras County. We might miss out on a little bit of that that's specific to our county in particular. But the overall studies that are conducted, we should be able to glean from those at no expense, and removing ourselves from the fray of continual march of people marching towards the cliff of insustainability in terms of finances. We're in debt to China. That's the bottom line. Everybody knows it. I don't have to say it, but I'm putting it out there. We are in debt as a nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Swett.
Hi, I'm Susan Robinson. I live in Arnold, California, and I wish to speak briefly in support of the county going for this grant. I commend the supervisors and the staff who have worked on this, that they recognize that the things that this grant would fund are things that we need to do, in fact, we'll have to do. Fiscally responsible means taking money that you can get that is available from a proposition that's already funded to allow you not to have to do draconian cuts elsewhere to social services or other departments, water, sewer, whatever, because you don't have the money to do something you need to do. Whether or not propositions change on AB 32, eventually the county will need to do some of the planning that is required, and this grant would go a long ways in seeing that the county has some funds it doesn't have now to do that. It's been an awful long time since I addressed the supervisors, and having sat through most of the meeting today, I have greater respect than I ever did for your patience and your ability to read and understand facts and figures and do a good job in trying to govern our county, and I really appreciate it. I have heard a lot of things today presented that have been read from websites that have no basis in reality, and it is alarming that we have become a scare tactic society, and I'd like to commend the supervisors for trying to keep us on track and staying with the facts and the figures and trying to be fiscally responsible. I took my mom back east to Boston last year where the Tea Party was, and we retraced the steps of our relatives who came over after the Mayflower and then were in colonial days, and went through the ancestry of our family who fought in Bunker Hill. So I think I know a little bit about the history of American freedom, and I don't see anything in this grant that would threaten me or scare me that is going to take away my freedoms or my quality of life in California. I've read up on what sustainable development means, and this is a quote that I think is very important. Sustainable development is defined as development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Who in this room wouldn't want sustainable development? Who in this room doesn't want the needs that we have today to be taken care of, but we don't want to sacrifice that for our grandchildren? None of us would want to do that, and that's what sustainable development in the concept is. It is got three interdependent goals: environmental protection, who in this room opposes protecting our quality of life in Calaveras, social well-being, and economic prosperity. The idea that these values must be integrated into our decision-making and our actions while accounting for the future as well as accounting for today's needs. So this isn't a communist plot. The meteors aren't going to strike the earth tomorrow if the county goes for this grant and has available funds to do some of the things that were just addressed with the water districts and et cetera. So I commend the supervisors again for their patience, their ability to try to govern in an everly increasing complex world. Our society is having lots and lots of changes go on with it, and we have to adapt to that and not maybe be scared of everything is going to be a conspiracy to take away our freedoms. And certainly this grant would not do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Mr. Reese, you've had your turn. If when we finish, you would Mr. Reese. No, Mr. Reese, the conversation goes to the board. Thank you. If you'd like to discuss it with Ms. Robinson afterwards, you can do that.
No rebuttal, ma'am.
No.
Wonderful. We do it another agenda. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Bill McManus, and I'm from Hanford Hill. I have spoken before the board previously about this grant application. What I see happening here is a grant or a process that is so multifaceted that we're starting to get confused on the different elements of the grant, what it's going to be used for, and how it's going to be paid for. Earlier today in this very board meeting, we've heard people come before the board looking for waivers and other opportunities for government to help out, and those have all been appropriate requests, and so they were approved, and it was for the good of the county. We've also heard people come before us today and state that, well, the bonds have been sold, therefore the money is there. That's only half the story. When a bond is sold, the obligation is incurred. Now the repayment begins. It's no secret that when the state of California starts doing its budget, a very large percentage of the money that is going to be required is in bond service. That means our tax money going to pay for bonds that have already been approved. So to say that this money is free or has already been paid for is simply untrue. So while some of these grants and bonds and whatever seem to be appropriate, I can see, like the FAA grant that we applied for the airport, that seems appropriate. They're building hangars at the airport with money that's been made available by the FAA. This grant seems to be a little bit more strained. It's a clean water, clean air bill that is going through Proposition 84, or AB 32. It comes out the other side, and we've got all these social issues that are being attached to this grant as a condition. Do we want to keep putting these conditions on the citizens of Calaveras County for a little bit of money? Are we selling out the future? Already our grandchildren are going to have to pay for this. What lifestyle changes are going to have to be made? When do we reach that critical mass where all the money that we've applied for because we thought it was free or a good idea takes all the power away from the Board of Supervisors, from Calaveras County, and from the citizens because we're constrained by other organizations, different levels of government? Pretty soon the state is going to be running Calaveras County, and we're not going to have a chance to say anything about it because we've signed on to these conditions. And I'd like to compliment Supervisor Tofanelli for his principled and courageous vote to not even pursue this application. And I would like to appeal to the other board members to very seriously consider whether we should head down this road. For 15 years, I was a resident of District 4. Tom Tryon was my supervisor. On many issues we agreed, and on some issues we disagreed over the years.
You were a lucky man.
What, to now live in District 3?
But
I remember to go back to those days and think that we would be having this discussion at the Board of Supervisors meeting in Calaveras County is almost unbelievable. I remember a young firebrand or a younger firebrand supervisor who would not have tolerated a discussion about this. It would have been thrown out. That was the supervisor who ran as the candidate for lieutenant governor of the Libertarian Party. Back in those days, grants like this would not have been possible. We don't want to put those golden chains on. Tell the state to keep their money. As far as sustainability, I think we should come up with a new definition for sustainability. And that's that this county can run itself without outside influence, without outside money, and without making obligations that we can't keep or that are going to destroy the lives and lifestyle of our children. Thank you.
Madam Chairman and Honorable Supervisors, I'm Al Segala, Calaveras County Taxpayer Association, and I'd like to urge you to not approve this, to vote no, and also thank Gary Tofanelli for his no vote at the last time this went before you. Last Thursday, our taxpayers group had an annual barbecue, and our speaker was Steve Fairchild, who owns Moaning Caverns, where the event was held. He talked about global warming, but he talked about evidence that was found in his caves. They sliced a piece of stalagmite or type, and research was done by universities as to what occurred temperature-wise over thousands of years. An amazing thing happened. The record that was shown the cave evidence matched the evidence that was brought about by the ice core drillings in Antarctica. In other words, the proposal that the UN was putting forth of a hockey stick global warming scare thing was false. And then later we found out it was deliberately false when the whistleblower disclosed the emails. We had Emailgate. Now, a few weeks ago, we discovered Obama's taking this global warming off of the website, and it looks like a house of cards is starting to fall apart because there's no real evidence of it. If it's true that there's no real evidence of this, why is this being pushed? Why, if you go to, is it right for somebody in a crowded theater to cry fire when there's no fire? Hey, does that make sense? Is that responsible? Is it even legal? Well, this is what's happening. We're bringing about a societal change. We're converting a free society to basically a socialist one under fear. Fear of global warming, which is not existing. There's 4 points that matter on the global warming. The greenhouse signature is missing. Weather balloons have scanned the skies for years, could find no sign of the telltale hotspot warming pattern that greenhouse gases would leave. There's not even a hint. Something else is causing the warming. Number 2, the strongest evidence was the ice cores, but newer, more detailed data turns the theory inside out. Instead of carbon pushing up temperatures for the last 500 million years, temperatures have gone up after carbon dioxide levels. On average, 800 years before. In other words, you have your warming first and your increase of carbon dioxide later. That's called cause and effect. This totally threw what we thought was cause and effect out the window. Something else is causing global warming. Temperatures are not rising. Satellites circling the planet twice a day show that the world has not warmed since 2001. How many more years of no global warming will it take? While temperatures have been flat, CO2 has been rising, but something else has changed the trend. Now, computer models don't know what it is. And the last one, carbon dioxide is already doing almost all the warming it can do. Adding twice the CO2 doesn't make twice the difference. The first CO2 molecules matter a lot, but extra ones have less and less effect. In fact, carbon levels were 10 times as high in the past, but the world still slipped into an ice age. Carbon today is a bit part player. In other words, we've been scared into changing our form of society to prevent a calamity, an alarm. We've been falsely scared. The global warming scare is not true. It's not based on science. And that's collaborated by 31,000 scientists that put their name on a petition at probably great danger to themselves, considering the types of words that are spoken by the proponents of global warming. These 31,000 scientists can be seen on the internet by going to the petition project. I think it's .org, the petitionproject.org. And you can see all the evidence and the truth about the whole thing. And I'm approaching my 5 minutes, I think.
You have 15 seconds.
15 seconds, okay. I'm getting better. So we urge you to not vote for this thing. It's a tragedy. And we have some signatures of a petition we passed around, which you're welcome to have. And I previously sent to you by email.
Thank you, Al.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kevin Hansen. I live in Mountain Ranch, and at risk of offending 4 of you, it's the most glorious district of the county, but I love the whole county, of course.
Your time is up.
Madam Chair, I didn't mean to offend you. First thing I want to start with is just a maintenance item. Could somebody contact maintenance, have some noise dampeners put on these doors? It's awfully disruptive. I want to say, first of all, I'm very strongly in support of you applying for the Sustainable Community Planning Grant. I think that the arguments against it are largely a red herring. They really shouldn't even be a discussion at this point. We have a choice of either it's going to be done or it's going to be done, and it's really a matter of how it's going to get funded. And to insult the county budget at this point in time, when we could simply accept a grant, which is not a bond, to accomplish this goal in the general plan makes perfect sense. I don't think there's really a discussion there. I want to emphasize, in my work as a mechanical engineer, industrial safety consultant, I manage my work surrounded by codes, regulations at the state and federal level, and use sound judgment based upon facts. I help clients administer the Clean Water Act and the Clean Air Act. I want to point out, first of all, that I'm not aware of any national codes. There are uniform building codes, plumbing codes, and there are international codes, but there are no national codes. Also on the topic of efficiency, of the private sector being more efficient than the public, again, that's not an argument we should be having. I worked in both. Now, if you saw what goes on in the private sector, you'd be appalled. I'm a member of the Union of Concerned Scientists and the American Solar Energy Society. My work supports those activities and my interests. So what I'm hearing here is a vocal minority, apparently to date, and what I've read in the paper, what I'm hearing this morning, essentially indicating that the Earth is flat. And I don't buy that argument. There's a preponderance of evidence for climate change, and it's more correctly called that than global warming, because some parts of the Earth will, in the near future, cool, and some will actually warm. There are 3 independent panels that refuted the email gate, or whatever you wish to call it, and that is also a red herring, and it should be put to rest. I think we should be scared, rightfully so. I think there's a whole lot of work to do in order to make sure we don't drive off the cliff. Now, as far as sustainability goes, I want to address that. I'm feeling from some of the opinions I'm hearing here, and again, I would support everybody else's congratulations for each of you hearing myself as well as everybody else you've heard to date. Some of these are simply unconscionable arguments. I think we should be scared because there is such a preponderance of evidence by thousands of independent scientists throughout the planet. This is in many, many, many different countries. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has been looking into this for many, many years. This is not to be disputed at this point unless you have, of course, sound science to do the same. And if you'd like to go up against thousands of scientists, help yourself. Thank you. It sounds like a lot of facts, or some facts, are being used to support arguments, and I know that you as the supervisors making these decisions can separate those. So I want to end with this. I want to make an invitation to everybody here in this room to find out what sustainability really is. The West Coast Green Festival will be held in San Francisco, September 22nd to 25th, and it is a sustainability conference, and I hope you can all make it. Thank you.
Mr. Reese, you had your moment, please. It's other people's. Thank you.
Hi, I'm John Pletty. I'm from West Point. And I want to say that I am in favor of this grant proposal. Also, what I keep hearing in here often is that we have no taxation we have taxation without representation. And I see lots of representation here. I see people here voicing their opinions. They voted for supervisors. They vote for bonds, for all kinds of things in the state. I think we're being well represented, and everybody has the ability to do that here, and this is what they're doing. I do get a little worried a lot of times with the higher density areas in the county who want to tell us up in the lower density areas what we should do and what we can do. And we're perfectly happy up there. We get together, we We've had meetings about the general plan. We get consensus, and I believe that we are a cohesive group, and we don't need other parts of the county telling us what we need to do or we don't need to do. Also, I keep hearing too that the free market is what should be allowed to rule, and the free market, though it has, there's a lot of good things about it, it does have its abuses and its excesses, and we've seen those. Global warming withstanding, we have a social responsibility to improve our environment. And as technology evolves, we can do more of that. And we've seen lots of problems with the free market. The free market in the past has skirted its pollution responsibilities in a lot of the old mines we see around here, which we're still trying to clean up, feedlots that are down in the valley that are putting their pollution and erosion from people who get their tractors out there and push dirt down into the rivers, deforestation, our medical system, which is a mess. And so government does have its place, and it's the only thing that can regulate these things. And I think if we have a state-mandated regulations that are requiring us to look at some of these areas, and we need the money for it, and we've got a chance to get it, then we should use it. And it only makes sense that we get this grant and use it and try to make some good, healthy decisions for our area. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Perez.
I'm Sally Tuttle from McKelvey Hill, and it just seemed to me that this is a wise thing for Calaveras County. And I want to point out that we've had wonderful things happen in Calaveras County from grants. I particularly think that our library system would have gone nowhere. We would just be in the dark ages as we were when we moved here in 1960 as far as the library system is concerned. We have a wonderful, beautiful central library, 7 branches, and they all grew out of a grant that the supervisors voted for in the early 90s.
Thank you, Ms. Clark.
My name is Joyce Carrillo, and I live in Mountain Ranch. Nobody has addressed the zoning issue, so I guess I'll address the zoning issue. Because I'm an old zoning person from, I sat on the zoning commission in Stanislaus County for a number of years, and I'm a very big advocate of consistent zoning. An important component of the Sustainable Communities Planning Grant for Calaveras County is funding to update the zoning ordinance, which must be done to assure that the new general plan and zoning are consistent. I've been here for 16 years, and that's been a big problem here, is the zoning and the whatever general plan we had was never particularly consistent. I asked Terry Baker about problems with zoning. Look at our Mountain Ranch Road going up toward Railroad Flat. We've got businesses that are in proper zoning, and we got messes, and our property values are going down because of these messes that are out there. Many people are confused by the relationship of the two documents, the general plan and zoning ordinances. The general plan is the county's long-term plan for land use and development. It guides all decisions about county regulations, ordinance, public improvements, and budgets. The zoning ordinance establishes development standards for land within the county. If you want to know the long-term plan for your county, check the general plan. If you want to know what you can do with your property, check the zoning ordinance. We know that the general plan has already cost us a lot of money to do. Not that it was unwisely spent, but it was necessary to do, but it's been very expensive. We also know that our general fund doesn't even have enough money to pay for day-to-day operations of county government. Scores of productive, very hardworking citizens have already been laid off by the largest employer in this county, i.e. county government. Without the funding provided for in this grant, we will not be able to complete the final step of the general plan update process. It would be foolish for us to reject this opportunity to receive funds from the state that are rightfully ours. Please accept the application so we can continue with our process and complete the general plan and zoning ordinance update in an efficient and timely fashion. And just one last comment about free market. I'm from Los Angeles. I was born in 1943. I saw my town. I'm from an old Mexican family in Los Angeles. I saw my town ruined because of inconsistent zoning ordinances, inconsistent and non-consistent general plans, and a free market that went crazy. I live here because of what happened there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Victor Guillot. I'm a small business owner. I've had a business in the county for about 30 years in the building trades. Over the years, we've adapted our business to kind of go along with what's going on in the economy. In the last 10 years, we've gotten into energy efficiency, and we now help people deal with their energy future, their energy budget, you might say. So what we do on a regular basis is we go into people's homes and businesses and we look at what their energy usage is, and we suggest ways to them that they might control the budget for their energy. So we do things like energy audits, and we identify areas that they need to tighten up on so that they can afford to pay their monthly utility bills, that sort of thing. We belong to a community organization that tries to advance education in the community. This organization is a group of architects, professionals, builders, energy analysts, and we're trying to educate people that are in the trades so that they might move into the future, and the future is controlling energy usage in the county. So I feel like this is an opportunity that you should not miss. If there is a small component in this grant that will help us to promote job growth in the county, that would be an excellent thing. I've heard a lot of things this morning, and I didn't really hear anybody say anything about what are we going to do about jobs in this county. All of my friends are in the building trades. Whenever I walk up to a friend that I haven't seen for a while, I want to say, hey, how's it going? And I almost can't do that anymore because the building trades have been devastated so badly by the economy that when I see an old friend, I don't really want to ask him how he's doing because I know that he's struggling. So I think we need to move forward in any areas that we can, and if there's a possibility that we might create some new jobs in the county, we need to move forward with that. Thanks.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address this item?
Joe Kelly, is this project part of SB 1174, the new future sustainability communities, identifying 5 cities, 5 counties involving disadvantaged communities as pilot projects, state money funded? If it isn't, maybe we should wait and see what that turns out to be. Let something go somewhere else and see how this is going to work for disadvantaged communities. Research on this item was not difficult, just time-consuming. In the area of fire prevention, Headwaters Economics Analysis takes a long view, potential for more home construction next to fire-prone public lands and implications of future wildfire fighting costs. As if fire policy, if homes don't exist, is to let the forest burn. Key finding, only 14% of forested western private land adjacent to public land is currently developed for residential use. The top 25 counties and region ranked by existing risk. Counties are ranked by the number of square miles of developed land in the wildland interface. Calaveras County ranks 18th. Tuolumne County ranks 17th. Counties in Oregon, Idaho, Washington, California, Montana, and Colorado were considered. Calaveras developed square miles, 40. Undeveloped square miles, 89.3. Percentage developed, 31%. Homes, 8,672. Percentage of second homes, 40%. California Resources Center for California Resources Center for Creative Land Recycling, California's golden opportunity. As California population grows, it is imperative that we choose responsible patterns of land use and act to reduce energy consumption. Brownfields are a golden opportunity to recycle land and reuse infrastructure to revitalize our urban communities, preserve agricultural land and open space, and improve the environmental and economic health of California. I learned a lot on that site. The one thing I didn't see, it failed to address recycling costs. HUD, Department of Transportation, and EPA, Interagency Partnership for Sustainable Communities, Smart Growth. I found the background statement and livability principles promote equitable, affordable housing. Within that is the expand location, energy efficient housing choices for all peoples of all ages, incomes, races, and ethnicities to increase mobility and lower the combined cost of housing and transportation. I found that interesting. Even more interesting, redefine housing affordability and make it transparent. The partnership will develop federal housing affordability measures that include housing and transportation costs and other expenses that are affected by location choices. Although transportation costs now approach or exceed housing costs for many working families. Federal definitions of housing costs do not recognize the strain or soaring transportation costs on homeowners or renters who live in areas isolated from work opportunities and transportation choices. The partnership will redefine affordability to reflect those costs, improve the consideration of the cost of utilities, and provide consumers with enhanced information to help them make housing decisions. Sustainable development. It's been given before, but development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. It sounds like we are an ungrateful society and need all government's ruling class dictates we can get. I closed out my research with two other documents. Political Economy Research Institute's Compensation for Environmental Services in Rural Communities, Lessons for the Americas, 2004, pardon me. Before I could make sense of it, I had to reread. You don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows, by Bill Ayers, Bernardine Dorn, and Associates. Then I understood the exploitation, the serfdom, and the servitude being offered as an environmental justice perspective. Payments for environmental services such as watershed management, biodiversity, conservation, and carbon sequestration can advance the goals of both environmental protection and reduction. PES, Payments for Environmental Services. It is addressed in this document.
Mr. Kelly, you have 30 seconds.
Oh, wow. The Sustainable Communities Planning Grant shows a budget grand total of $1,766,938 with Calaveras County Development Code update, consultant $250,000, staff Calaveras County $50,000, a total of $300,000. Even that's a cheap return for selling our property rights and the elimination of our pro-suspension votes on the AB 32 in the November election. I ask you because it needs to be asked in the federal arena. How many of you have read this document? Do you understand it? Do you understand a yes vote is a vote undermining the California Constitution and federal Constitution and telling all present that you lied when stating your oath of office? Remember, support and defend the Constitution. And as to that, within the California Constitution, Article 1, Section 1, Inalienable Rights, Federal Amendment, Amendment 5, Private Properties, 14, Section 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Well,
Hi, I'm Melissa Eads, Tuolumne County Transportation Council. I'm happy to be back representing Tuolumne County and the project that you have before you. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce Larry Bile. He's our GIS coordinator with the Tuolumne County Community Development Department. He's also assuming the responsibilities as project manager for this project over in Tuolumne County.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Calaveras Board of Supervisors. As Melissa said, my name is Larry Bile, and I'm the Geographic Information System Coordinator for the county. Been employed there for over almost 22 years. I am, at this point, the project manager for this grant application. Melissa, myself, and Mr. Prestizo from your office were the primary authors, with contributions from many others. What I want to emphasize today is the important thing to note that as a result of the project, let's assume it's approved. Let's assume it's approved at full value, which we don't know. They have the right to approve portions or approve and negotiate the costs during that approval process. So we're hoping that we'll be successful for the full application, but we don't know that's for sure. But if that takes place, there'll be a process over the next 2 years where that'll include significant amount of public involvement and involvement from your board. Well, we're attempting at this time to create a multiple layer of advisory committees, a technical advisory committee which will include staff, and then a policy committee which will include representatives designated from your board and from the other boards that are participating as the participating members in this organization we put together of other agencies. So at that point, those board members will make decisions as to how the plan will be put together based on some consulting assistance we're going to get using the money. And at that point, it will include multiple levels of public participation, workshops in all the counties involved, various locations, various times. So we include working people as well. At some point, they'll be finished, and you'll end up with a plan. And that plan will be presented to you for some possible implementation, possibly affect your general plan in the future, maybe not. You're looking at a zoning update. That would definitely come back to you. And the